Welcome to the college football recap episode of Walk Off Sports Media Podcast. I'm joined today with Jackson Porch.
What's
Appreciate
up,
you
guys?
coming on with us, Porch. You had a good weekend of college football. I know being an Alabama fan, it's always nice to beat LSU.
Yeah, that was good. Just enjoyed watching a lot of good games. I think it was a underrated slate, but just a lot of stuff. College football playoff implications, just kind of narrowing down, getting to that time.
Yes, sir. I completely agree. The ACC is absolutely cannibalizing themselves right now. But we're going to dive into all of that. First, we're going to start off with, honestly, a game that should have probably been in that 6 p.m. window. But we're going to start off with BYU versus Texas Tech. I mean, this was College Game Day was there this week, was advertised as, one of the biggest games of the season, huge playoff implications. And I mean, Texas Tech just came away with an absolute domination, winning 29-7. What were your initial thoughts on this game, Porch?
Yeah, I think that place was just energetic. Like you said, college game day being there. My main takeaway from this game, it really should have been 29-0. BYU punches one in late. Texas Tech's front seven, they'll have a lot of flash on offense, like Morton. They have a good running back, good wide receiver pieces. But this front seven, I mean, if you look across
Mm-hmm.
every game they've played, I think you'd be hard pressed to find a defense better than theirs. So I think they keep rolling.
100%. Like you said, Morton played well. I think he's been really steady for Tech this season. I don't think he's necessarily one of the top quarterbacks that we've seen, but he's been very steady. Dickey's been really good out of the backfield. And that defense is just, I mean, it's been crazy for them. They really impressed with this Texas Tech team, but flipping the page over to BYU, Bo Backmeyer kind of struggles a little bit. He is a freshman, but has a little bit of struggles against this Texas Tech defense. What do you think this does for BYU's playoff hopes?
You look at their schedule, they've got a really, including this one, tough just last four games. I think this is a team that has overachieved, like a lot of close games. I think they're lucky to be 8-1, but I mean, at 8-1, you're still in the hunt. This could be a potential rematch in the conference championship game. So all you have to do is win that and get in. But I think it's going to be a rough finish for the Cougars, kind of like you saw last year. I think they started 9-0 and then lost maybe their last three. So something similar to that.
I agree 100%. I think that this is the team, that has played well enough to get to the position where they're at, but unfortunately, they've got another tough stretch down here towards the end of the season, and it's going to be hard for them to really get back into that playoff mix, especially when you look at
Yeah,
it.
I'm going to pull up their last three games right here. So
Yeah.
you got TCU at home, probably should win that one. You got Cincinnati on the road, that'll be a tough one. You got UCF
Hmm.
at home, so I think they probably lose one out of those. I thought it was a little tougher, but I guess since
Well,
TCU's fallen off a little bit,
TCU's still good though. That's still a good football team,
yeah. And the
regardless.
Big 12 so close, you can't ever.
I mean, you saw they struggled with Iowa State a couple of weeks ago, so I wouldn't necessarily say that they're going to run away with it. I mean, Houston and UCF just played Houston close, and then obviously Cincinnati was in the top 25 last week. Obviously, got demolished by Utah. I think we could definitely see another loss on BYU's schedule, and they could end up not even making that Big 12 championship game. So
And
we'll see.
I think another important point too is you see like the college football committee did not think very highly of BYU, putting them at
Mm-mm.
7.
Yeah.
So you go A&M, Indiana, Ohio State, all undefeated. Then you get 3 one-loss SEC teams, then BYU. So I think they're going to drop maybe out of the top 12. We'll see.
Well, the AP poll today did have them actually exactly at 12, which I think was a little bit generous considering how they played Tech and how they've looked in some closer games this season. I've not necessarily been super blown away with BYU, but we'll see. Touching on Texas Tech, I think this probably solidifies them as not necessarily a lock because, like you said, some crazy stuff could happen down the stretch, but they have 2 games left, and I think they probably will win both. They played the 2 toughest teams in the Big 12 with Arizona State and BYU, so I think it's pretty safe to say that Tech will be in that Big 12 championship game, and that this almost solidifies them as if they win that Big 12 championship, they're obviously going to be a lock, but they're getting pretty close to that lock territory, and I think this team definitely is
Yep.
deserving of that. So
And I just put up their schedule as well. They got UCF at home and West Virginia on the road. So 2 very winnable games.
extremely winnable games, especially with how talented this is. And Jacob Rodriguez, I mean, that he's playing. playing well enough at the linebacker position there for Tech where he could be put in that conversation for a Heisman Trophy. Not saying anybody on defense is going to win it, but I think that he has definitely played his way into that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, I love David Bailey, and I mean this Tech team is really really talented. But we're gonna touch now on the other. Almost, it was nearly an upset up there at Beaver Stadium. Penn State w- had the opportunity to go and upset the number 2 team in the country, Indiana, had them down, and Fernando Mendoza leads an amazing comeback drive, and it ended up being one of the best catches I had ever seen to win a football game. I mean, that toe tap was insane, absolutely insane from Omar Cooper. That absolutely crazy game. I think this says a lot about both teams. Obviously, Penn State we knew was going to be talented with Katron Allen and Nick Singleton coming out of the backfield. I mean, that's 2 elite running backs, but I think this game says a lot more about Indiana. What are your honest thoughts on the Hoosiers? Do you think they're now maybe could get bumped back in the rankings for such a shocking result to a 3-5 team? Or do you think this shows that they're super resilient and really well coached?
No, I'd be surprised if Indiana dropped below 3 just with and I mean, they're going to stay up there. Penn State's like a really good roster. Like I'm wondering if you looked at what that line would have been before the season with Indiana going into Penn State. No one denies Penn State's got talent, so especially with that home atmosphere, they still fans still showed out. They got a really good roster, so everyone knew that was going to be a closer game than maybe others could suggest. But I mean, I think it just says a lot about Indiana gutting that win out. Can't really complain with a win at this time of the year. I think 10 wins moves them into that lock territory as well. Talking college football
100%.
playoff.
Well, they are almost guaranteed that Big Ten championship. Now, if they went out, and I think their schedule looks pretty easy. I'm going to pull it up right here. They have, yeah, they're sitting right there. Them and Ohio State are in first place, tied for first place in the Big Ten right now. So, I mean, unless they have a significant slip up, I mean, I can see them winning out. They've got Wisconsin next. So,
Yeah,
I
then
mean,
you got Purdue in the rivalry weekend on the road,
yeah,
so you never know. But I think they comfortably win one or the next two, putting them in the playoff, and then probably a match with Ohio State for the conference championship.
pretty much the number 1 seed in the playoff as well. So
Yeah,
I think this Indiana team's legit. Definitely shows that any team though this season in college football can get beat, and we've seen that week in week out that really anybody can get upset. And road games are the other thing that's really tough too in college football this season. Is just it seems like every road environment, the better team sometimes ends up losing. Like we saw with Texas going into Florida, you would probably say Texas is one of the better teams in the country this season, and then going into the swamp like that just did not play their best game, and really shows you the importance of home field advantage. And we've seen that with a bunch of teams this season.
yeah. I think overall this has just been probably the craziest college
Mm-hmm.
football playoff season of my lifetime at least.
100%.
Just a lot of crazy results. No one's and it's any given Saturday, so
Well, a game that we kind of thought going into the week might have been an upset, Georgia versus Mississippi State. We don't have to spend too much time on this because Georgia absolutely dominates the Bulldogs down there in Starkville. Gunnar Stockton played a really good game, 264, 3 touchdowns, but really Nate Frazier just had a phenomenal game rushing the football. Only 12 attempts and 81 yards and a touchdown. I mean, that's just sick. Mississippi State couldn't stop the run. And struggled a little bit on offense. I think Georgia, this was the game I think people probably thought going into Texas next week that Georgia could potentially struggle going into one of the biggest games of their season. And they answered a lot of questions that personally I had after that Florida game and just some of even the Auburn game where they've looked a little suspect when, the Auburn game was a game they probably should have lost if it wasn't for SEC officiating. But what do you think about this Georgia Bulldogs team?
think just an impressive win for Georgia. Like you said, I think everyone kind of thought that this would be a close game. Mississippi State, the way they've played, they could easily have 2 losses right now. They've just played, and
Hmm.
I mean, I feel like they haven't played a game on the road except for A&M all year. They've had so many big games at home this year, but I think it just says a lot about Georgia. Kirby Smart, I think part of this result is having that close game against Florida. Kirby probably put a little more emphasis on this one that they couldn't overlook it, even though they have a look ahead spot going into Texas. But I think it's just a good win for Georgia, and they're going to keep it rolling.
100%. I really liked what I saw from Georgia this week. It's going to be a fun one down there in Athens, Texas versus Georgia this next Saturday night. I'm really looking forward to that one. Oregon, Iowa. This was an awesome game. If you love offense, this game was not for you, but phenomenal game from the Hawkeyes. They really took it to the Ducks, shut down Dante Moore until that last drive for Oregon. I think he only had 62 yards going into that final drive where he led a phenomenal comeback drive to come back and win. But this this Iowa team really played well on defense and played their signature brand of Iowa football and really should have won this game, but the Ducks end up getting the W. What do you think this says about both teams?
Yeah, just unfortunate. I've always had like just kind of been like I don't want to call myself a fan of Iowa, but I just always enjoy how they play. I appreciate how they do it. They were ranked number 20. This kind of eliminates them from the playoffs. They had a couple chances here late. They played Indiana good. They lost to Iowa State in a rivalry game earlier in the year, but I think this says a lot about Oregon to everyone thinks of Oregon as flash, high scoring. To go in and win a game in this style, that's not easy, especially everything was in Iowa's favor. They were at home. It was pouring down rain. Just kind of says a lot about Oregon. I think Iowa's still a really good football team. Just unfortunate that they weren't able to pull that one out. I think they did almost everything they could. So
I completely agree. I think this definitely says a lot about Oregon's resilience because in this game, Dante Moore was missing his top four pass catchers. So that in itself, I mean, if you're missing your top four wide receiver tight ends, I mean, that it's just it makes it really tough to get any rapport going with your receivers on offense. And Oregon just really showed that they're a very talented team. Now, this does give me questions, obviously, about the Ducks heading into the playoff. Do I think this is maybe a national championship contender? I'm not necessarily so sure, but anytime you can win in Kinnick Stadium, that is one of the hardest places to play in the country, one of the most
yeah,
underrated places to play in the country. Those Iowa fans are loud, rowdy. I mean, we saw when I played there with Troy, like it gets going. It is a great environment. Good win for the Ducks, and I think this Iowa team is one of the most underrated teams
mhm.
in the country, and I'd like to see them win out, where they could end up with maybe a New Year's Six bowl game or something worthy of this caliber of this team. So
Yeah, I couldn't agree more on everything you said.
Wisconsin, Washington. This was a very weird game. Obviously, Washington just getting into the top 25 this last week, and Wisconsin's just been on having a horrible season this year. This has been one of the worst Big Ten teams, but they end up shocking Washington. And you know what's crazy? Their punter had the most yards out of anybody throwing the ball for Wisconsin. That's just crazy to beat a Jed Fish Washington team. So Wisconsin got it done on the ground and their defense came up big, but I think 3 losses we can pretty much say knocks you out of playoff contention and conference championship contention. So obviously this eliminates Washington, but just sucks to see for a team that, you thought that could potentially sneak in there at the end. But what do you think about Wisconsin's passing game? I mean, that's crazy. Their starting quarterback had 8 yards.
I
So,
mean, yeah, just they found a way to win. I think this was kind of a combination of a couple different things. Got the cross country travel spot for Washington. You have
mhm,
Wisconsin announced earlier in the week. They're bringing back Fickle next year, so maybe
crazy.
players got up for that. And then you're also hearing Jed Fish's name in some of these jobs, especially Florida. He's a Florida alum, so I think it's just kind of a bad mix for Washington. This, I'll be honest, this is one I didn't really have on. Just so many good
Mhm.
games. I think Auburn, Vandy, Oregon, Iowa was going
Yep,
on during this. Not one I paid close attention to. Just kind of one you check your phone, you go like, whoa, what happened here? So I know it
100%.
just sucks for Washington because they had a good schedule coming down the line. They host their rival Oregon, and Washington also has a really underrated home environment, like you were talking about
Yep.
Iowa. So I think that sucks for them, but that for sure knocks them out of the playoffs.
If they had won this one and then gotten a win against Oregon, you don't know what the committee would have done. Definitely sucks for them. We'll see what happens in that one next week. I think that is a very sneaky game for Oregon, just coming off a really physical game against Iowa. We could definitely see this Washington 10 teams pulling off something special at home. But I think overall, good win for, I know Luke Fickle's probably happy to get that dub, especially with all the questions that have been, asked about his job and everything like that. But Auburn Vanderbilt, that was a phenomenal game.
Yeah,
I mean,
great game.
Diego Pavia, I mean, he's putting up stats every single week. Last week, little They were a little sluggish through the first 3 quarters against Texas, really turned it on towards the end. Kinda same thing this week. Had a pretty poor first half, but second half absolutely turned it up, and Auburn's defense probably plays its worst game all season, and the offense, see what happens when you get rid of Jackson Arnold. So, what'd you take away from this game?
Just huge win for Vandy. You can see I'm repping them right here.
Uh-huh.
I love Pavi. I love this team. Big win. Vanderbilt hosts Kentucky next week. Then they're in Knoxville the week after on rivalry weeks. You have got a chance to make the playoffs. You win out, control your own destiny for Auburn. They got up for Durkin for sure. Saw kind of an inversion of what's happening all year. I guess maybe Durkin focusing on the new head coaching role or interim head coaching role. He didn't have as much time to focus on defense. They let Vandy score 45, and I think no team scored over 20 or 24 on them
Mm-mm.
this year. So kind of just Auburn can't find a way to win. They just lose. They're kind of losing any scenario right now. So just interesting. Kind of got a feel for Auburn, but just excited for Vandy to keep it rolling.
100%. I really liked what I saw out of Vanderbilt this week, but really the big talking point was we'd heard a lot about out of Auburn about Ashton Daniels was potentially going to start over Jackson Arnold. We'd heard that throughout all of fall camp. Hugh Freeze ends up going with Jackson Arnold. And I just found that pretty interesting that the first move that Durkin makes after the firing was to start this kid, and he balls out. It feels almost like Auburn had kind of a little bit of a wasted season when they had Ashton Daniels on the bench who could play this well and you don't use him all season. You struggle with Jackson Arnold through 9 games. I think Auburn fans will be a little bit upset with how this season's gone. Outside the quarterback position, we could definitely have an argument that this is one of the most talented teams in all of college football.
I mean,
I mean,
top 10 defense, and I think
and
Ashton came in a little bit against
yeah,
Arkansas, and then they rotate him against Kentucky in a weird game. Then obviously you see what he can do. I think they handed the play calling over primarily to Derek Nix, away from Freeze, of
hmm
course, because he got fired. But I just think, I mean, Auburn. I heard might redshirt Daniels next game because they're going to sit him against Mercer. He'll only have played 4 games. His last one against Alabama, then can potentially redshirt. So that should be an interesting tidbit right there.
with him playing as well as he did against Vanderbilt, I wonder if this could be another one of those crazy Iron Bowl games where we see the Tigers come in and
Yeah.
beat Alabama.
You know,
It's
you
crazy. It
know, it
would be
will be.
crazy. It's going to be crazy. But I love what I saw out of Eric Singleton Jr. and Cam Coleman. I'd say this is the best 1A, 1B wide receiver pairing in the country this year, and they just haven't been utilized, to the ability that they could have been. But definitely was a phenomenal game. Think about like 5 years ago, if we said, yeah, Vandy's 8-2,
Yeah.
top 15 team in the country, you would have called us crazy. But they control, like you said, control their own destiny and could sneak into the playoffs as one of those last SEC teams. I definitely think that we'll talk about it in a second. We'll look at the bracket, but um, definitely think that Vandy has the opportunity to get in that playoff. But now we're going to talk about Texas A&M, Missouri. Got to watch a lot of this one every week. I swear, I don't know if I'm conditioned to pick Texas A&M this week, but I'm just conditioned to that Aggie blow up where I'm just expecting them to lose to a team that they shouldn't have, like they've done in the past. And this team just continues to win. It's the first time A&M's been 9-0 in 30 years. That is just insane. Maybe you could throw Marcel Reed in the Heisman race, but I don't necessarily think he's the focal point of A&M's success. I think their defense has been very solid, and the weapons they have around Marcel Reed are the best in the country with those 2 backs and Casey Conception and Mario Craver, Ashton Bethel Roman. I mean, this is an absolutely loaded offense. But obviously with Missouri being ranked 22, you wanted to see a little bit more of a game out of them at home, and A&M just dominates. So what'd you take away from this one?
You think A&M is going to blow up any moment? I'm conditioned the same way. Mike Elko just has his team playing really fundamental, really solid. This is a game you still thought 7-0 after the first quarter, 14 at halftime. They didn't really put Missouri away, but A&M kind of got it rolling offensively in the second half. Defense stands up like you had said earlier.
Hmm.
It's just hard to keep Concepcion and Craver bottled up for 4 quarters, especially when you also have such a solidified running attack with those 2 backs you mentioned. But I think they're a lock for the playoff as well because they're probably going to get in the SEC championship game. They host South Carolina this weekend, and they have Samford and then Texas. So probably going to go 2-1 in those, play in the SEC championship, and have a really good chance to have a high seed in the playoff.
Ruben Owens has done a phenomenal job filling in there, and Casey Conception and Mario Craver have been awesome. Marcel Reed is starting to play better. We still see some of those inconsistent passes, ill-advised throws from him, but he's just a freak athlete. I mean, he's so
Mhm.
athletic and can do so much with the ball in his hands and in the open fields. And him's going to keep rolling. And like you said, I could see a world where they go 2-1 and still find a way in the SEC championship game just with everybody has tough games left on the slates. We're going to definitely see what happens here in the next couple weeks. But now we got to talk a little bit of ACC ball. Two teams that I've been screaming and crying out saying that they are too highly rated, too highly ranked. Louisville and Virginia. Two teams that I was not sold on, especially Virginia, almost losing to a Bill Belichick led North Carolina. But we'll touch on Louisville first. Cal ends up going into Louisville and getting the win against the Cardinals. And, Miller Moss didn't play his best there, the USC transfer, 203 yards and one interception. Saga Palute has been honestly one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the ACC this season. And Cal gets the win, improves to 6-4, and Louisville falls out. What do you think this does kind of for Louisville's playoff hopes and their ACC hopes?
I just think in general it's probably the worst. If you're the ACC commissioner, you're kicking yourself. You just took yourself, no doubt, to a one bid league this year. Right now, you
100%.
have Duke. You have Duke, who has a 50% chance to make your title game with 4 losses, 3 of those being out of conference. They had one to UConn this weekend, so it's just a crazy result. I think Jeff Brom, Louisville's head coach, has also been
Hmm.
mentioned in some of those coaching searches. So like, I think that has a big effect. Like you saw Summerall at Tulane getting
Yep.
blown out by UTSA as soon as Auburn opened. So I think it's crazy how that goes. But big win for Cal. Was not expecting this one. Think it was a pretty big spread or number on that one. I just implosion by Louisville. You kind of controlled your own destiny, had your path, and you kind of choked it away.
They blew a chance at a college football playoff with what's going on in the ACC right now. Same with Virginia. These are the two teams that coming into the season we did not have in this conversation, and they get some big wins like Virginia beating Florida State, Louisville upsetting Miami. Two really big results for these programs, and had a lot of momentum, just couldn't get it done.
And I was a
Unfortunate.
lot more surprised. I was a lot more surprised by this result right here than the.
Hmm.
I knew Virginia was kind of due for a loss. Louisville, I thought, would lose a little bit later, but keep it rolling as of now.
I agree. I was shocked that they lost in the fashion that they lost to Cal, but Wake Forest does end up beating Virginia. Virginia's Cinderella story is kind of over. This eliminates them from the playoff contention just because they didn't play really anybody out of conference, and their best win on their schedule has been Florida State, and this knocks them out of the ACC championship game. So like you said, it is going to be a race to the finish for the ACC who can make that title game and get that automatic bid. But moving ahead to the last game we're going to cover from this weekend, LSU, Alabama. What were your initial thoughts from this one? I mean, going in, I kind of figured that LSU was going to play with a chip on their shoulder just because Brian Kelly got fired, and it's a rivalry game. You know how these teams turn up when it comes to rivalry weekend. Story of LSU season is the offense just hasn't really gotten going.
Yep.
Garrett Nussmeyer, completion wise, played well, but if you watch some of the sacks he took and just the plays he was making, he missed a lot of wide open receivers, which ends up leading to him getting benched. And then Michael Van Buren comes in, the Mississippi State transfer, and doesn't really do anything with that opportunity. Ty Simpson continues to play well, and he's in the thick of the Heisman Trophy conversation right now. But I really love those wide receivers out of Alabama, Bernard, and then obviously Ryan Williams. But what are your initial takeaways from this game?
I didn't think Alabama played very well at all. Lucky this final score is not indicative of how this game went. It's just LSU. I was really scared for this game as a Bama fan because they fire their coach, they're going to get an interim bump. They fire their OC, and there was rumblings of Van Buren starting from the jump. So you kind of just we're going. Alabama's going in like you can't watch any film on the old LSU team, but LSU's offense still stays the same, and it's kind of just so weird because the knock on LSU early in Brian Kelly's era, especially with that Jaden Daniels team, is they can't play any defense, but they'll score 50 points a game. And this year, you go out in the portal and get your defense corrected, and then you can't score any. So it's kind of um, just weird for LSU. I think it's a good win for Bama. I think they have a lot of stuff to clean up, but just you can't complain with a win right now.
This Alabama team, I can't quite figure them out. Like they're obviously a really good football team, and Kalen DeBoer's doing has done his thing in year two, but they still just don't at times just don't look. They're obviously good, but they just don't look like a complete football team at
Yeah,
times. And the defense played really well this week, but I think a bigger story from this game was the amount of penalties LSU took compared to the amount of penalties Alabama had. Like LSU cost themselves a lot of yardage and a lot of big plays just based off all of the penalties that they had in this one. And I think Alabama definitely got lucky. The final score was not indicative of the game, and I kind of had it figured going into this one that LSU was going to give Alabama a game and a run for their money, and ended up what kind of happened. But it's
and
always
just I
good.
think Alabama's defense too bowed up in the
Hmm.
red zone. I mean, holding them to 3 field goals. They missed one from like 20 or
Yep,
25 yards early in the
and that's one of
game.
the best kickers
But
in the
like
country
you said, it
too.
was very close.
Yeah,
Yeah.
from one of the best kickers in the country too, Damian Ramos. I mean, that guy has the potential to be a draft pick in the NFL. I mean, it's crazy to miss a kick that short, but obviously this LSU team left a lot of points out there, and but you got to give credit to the Alabama defense. That bend don't break mentality. I mean, that's what separates the good teams from the great teams. And when you can play down, like you said, when you cannot play your A game and still get a win over a quality SEC opponent, that is always going to be massive. But we're going to go ahead and look at last week's college football playoff rankings. We discussed these a little bit. Felt like the committee got it right. From what I can see this week, I can see A&M definitely taking a jump up in the rankings over Indiana. I think Ohio State has solidified itself as the number
Yeah.
one seed in the country with that Texas win and being undefeated. I don't think any team in the country has looked more complete than Ohio State. Like I love what Julian Sain's doing. I love Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate's actually established himself as the alpha receiver for Ohio State, which a lot of people didn't see coming into the season. This is just a really good football team, and I think Texas A&M and Indiana are obviously interchangeable at 2 and 3. But I think Texas A&M doing what they did to Missouri and Indiana struggling with Penn State gives the committee reason to put A&M ahead of them, especially with how hard the SEC's been this season. I know A&M hasn't had to go through a massive gauntlet, like they haven't had to play Alabama or Georgia, but they still have played some quality SEC teams and gotten results against them. So I think the Aggies definitely are deserving of that second spot. So I'd probably have Indiana at third. And then do you think Alabama and Georgia flip flop after Georgia dismantles Mississippi State and then Alabama, you know, didn't play their best against LSU? What can you see happening there?
I think 1 through 6 is pretty much going to stay the
Mhm.
same. I mean, I don't know if the committee's is interested in flipping them around. I mean, it's going to kind of take care of itself. I think, like I said earlier, BYU being ranked at 7 when they were undefeated at the time, I think that means the committee's going to knock them out of the top 12 because they didn't really respect them. But I
Mhm.
guess you have to rank them against Utah with the head to head. I'm still so interested what they're going to do with Notre Dame because they lose their first 2 games of the season. Have looked phenomenal since. But I mean, at the end of the day, if Miami goes 10-2 and Notre Dame goes 10-2, Miami has the head to head. I think they're setting themselves up for some failure right there. I think I'd like to see Vandy jump up a little higher. I like how they have Texas and Oklahoma side by side, just because Texas did beat Oklahoma and they
Yep.
both have 2 losses. I think obviously Texas Tech is going to jump up.
Mhm.
Oregon will probably move up 1 spot. I think everybody's just going to kind of slide up with
Shift up and then BYU
BYU,
slip back.
Virginia, and Louisville,
Yeah. What I would like to
and
see
Virginia and Louisville are
is
definitely going to fall
mhm.
pretty fall.
I agree. What I'd like to see, Texas Tech's going to be your 7 seed. Oregon will probably move up to 8 and Notre Dame 9. Texas at 10, Oklahoma at 11, and then I think BYU slots in there right at 12, right in front of Utah. But I mean, I really think the SEC has the capability for 5 teams. I mean, I know we have right now. If we look at it, we would have Texas A&M, Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, and then Texas would be that fifth team in right now with BYU's loss this week. I think 100% the SEC deserves 5 playoff spots this year, just with how deep that conference has been. I think probably
Yeah.
the 3 teams out of the Big Ten, they're almost locks now with everybody else who's lost. I think Ohio State, Indiana, and Oregon definitely are locks to get in the playoff. I think Michigan and USC could potentially make a push at the end, but I don't think that they have had enough. Obviously, with USC losing to Notre Dame, and then Michigan has just not really wowed anybody this season. They also have lost to Oklahoma, so I don't think they can really push up higher than some of these SEC teams just with their uh their resume. Like you said, Miami and Georgia Tech now, you would have thought it was doom and gloom for Georgia Tech and Miami after they had the weekends that they had last weekend. But now with Virginia and Louisville losing, they're right back in the hunt. Georgia Tech, we could easily see them winning the ACC championship and getting in. But I agree with you. This sets up a really, really big weekend of like the next couple weeks are obviously going to be massive, but looking ahead to next weekend, we're going to have some fun games just to watch as fans. And I'm super excited about it. Notre Dame Pitt could be a really interesting game for playoff implications. Pitt's looked pretty good this season, has played well, so that could be a tough game for Notre Dame. I think Texas A&M will handle South Carolina. Indiana, Wisconsin, Indiana should bounce back pretty well. But USC Iowa, that should be a really fun game. Just, if Iowa ends up winning that, they'll put themselves right back in the conversation. USC did not look great against Nebraska, and I'm not I'm not completely sold on this Trojan team yet. But really, the two games that jump out on the schedule for this next week are Oklahoma, Alabama, and Georgia, Texas. Two massive games in the SEC. And I think the Georgia Texas game is going to follow the Oklahoma Alabama game on ABC. So you don't want to switch off from that. But we'll start off with Oklahoma Alabama. Porch, what are you kind of looking for going into this game?
I think just another winnable game for Alabama. It's going to be close. I think I was going to say earlier. I think part of the reason for all of Alabama's close games is that's just how DeBoer's coached everywhere he's been. I mean, he's
Hmm.
as good as anybody in the big games, but all of his games are close. But he finds a way to win them. But I mean, you wish he could give his team some more cushion. But Oklahoma's playing with their life on the line. They have to win out to get in there. They're behind Texas due to the tiebreaker from losing in Red River, and then yeah, I'd say look for Mateer to have a big game. Alabama's still been kind of getting gashed in the run game, so they need to clean that up. But I think Alabama will end up pulling it.
I think if this game is up in Norman, it's a lot closer. But I think the fact that it's in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, probably feels pretty comfortable with this. Honestly, if I'm a Crimson Tide fan, the one I'm honestly more worried about is the Iron Bowl with
Yeah,
Auburn. I don't think I'm as worried about this game with Oklahoma because it's going to be what it's going to be. The Iron Bowl is what I'm really looking forward to because I think that one it's one of the premier, probably the biggest rivalry in college football. I mean, you got Texas A&M, Ohio State, Michigan, but the Iron Bowl, just the in-state rivalry of Alabama versus Auburn and just the history behind it, that game is a little bit more concerning for Tide fans, but
and you got to remember that Alabama or Oklahoma put Alabama out of the playoff last year, so a little bit of a
mhm.
revenge angle there. I mean, Burrow's going to have his guys pretty lit up about that because there's a lot of returners from that Alabama team last year that remember that. So I think look for that angle as well.
And especially not playing their best against LSU, they're gonna wanna make a
Yeah.
statement this week too. If you're an Oklahoma fan, you wanted Alabama to blow LSU out by 40 last week, get the vibes high and maybe where you can catch them. But I think this is gonna be a pretty tough one for Brett Venables' team to win. Texas, Georgia, this game a couple weeks ago, you would have said Georgia, there's no shot that Georgia loses this one. Texas looked terrible, kind of dead in the water. Really the only game that after that Kentucky game that you really could have said Texas played well in that was not a non-conference game was the Red River rivalry, and that the defense played phenomenal. The whole season, the defense has played well. I mean, they held Ohio State to 14 points, and minus the Mississippi State game, this defense has been one of the most premier defenses in the country, and we just hadn't seen anything out of Arch Manning to warrant that he was, an elite quarterback. Now, fast forward to 2 weeks ago against Mississippi State, plays phenomenally, brings them back, and then against Vanderbilt, I mean, played phenomenally. Really showed his talent. Made a lot of the throws that he'd been missing all season. And then I'm going to flip that over to Georgia now. Georgia's been a team that has been super resilient. Has been down in a lot of games. Obviously, Auburn, Ole Miss. They've struggled at times all season, even against Florida, where they were down, and they've come back continuously. Put on a great show this week against Mississippi State. Gunnar Stockton's looked solid, but this team is a really solid football team. So I'm really excited to see this one. Obviously, Texas coming off the bye week and Georgia off that big win. What do you kind of see happening in this one?
Yeah, one point I'll make before I get to the game. I mean, I think you got to give Arch Manning a lot of kudos because I don't think any player in the history of football has ever had more pressure than Arch did coming into this year with the hype surrounding him being related to Peyton Manning. He's from football royalty, and everyone tore him down after the first couple of weeks, maybe rightfully so. But then you don't hear anybody give him his praises. Like you said, he's played phenomenally the last 3 weeks and has put Texas right back in the hunt. So I think it's important to give him his props, and I think Texas is a completely different team with him playing well because, like you said, the defense has been so good all year.
I'll touch on Arch Manning a little bit too, because I agree with you. I mean, this Texas team coming into the season, they were the preseason number one, rightfully so. I mean, the roster was uber talented around Arch, and it was all contingent on if Arch played well. And obviously, did not get off to a super strong start, but he has really played well the last 2 weeks. And this team, as long as they stay healthy, this is not the same Texas team that almost lost to Kentucky. This is not the same Texas team that lost to Ohio State in the beginning of the season. This is not the same Texas team that lost to Florida. This is a new Texas team. Sark has been really big in sticking behind Arch Manning because, they've got a really experienced backup in Matthew Caldwell, who's, at Troy. We saw what he did last year and is really talented. Um, could have easily moved off, and like we've seen a lot of other coaches do, and he stuck with Arch. And credit to Arch, like you said, Arch has been the most criticized quarterback in the country because of he's coming from that lineage of Arch Manning, Peyton Manning, Eli Manning. So I'm really, really proud of him just, as just another athlete. Like it's incredible to see the adversity that he's been able to overcome. And I hope he has a big game, but I'll let you get to this game real quick.
Yeah, I think it's tough for Texas going to the hedges. I think it hurts Texas that Alabama already went in there and won. Georgia never loses more than one at home usually. But Texas is playing for their life right here, and I don't know. I think Georgia swept them last year, correct? Beat them in
Yep.
Austin, and then beat them in the
They
SEC
beat him in
championship.
Austin.
So I think that's an important angle too. I mean, I think it's just going to be a really close game. It's going to be potentially who has the ball last. I think could be a little more high scoring than people are thinking. I think people are still kind of underrating kind of the jump Texas has made. And Gunnar Stockton last week, he's been rolling. He's been rolling ever since the second half of Ole Miss, where he got that going. I think this will be just a phenomenal game. One thing I'll say too is I don't know that this necessarily, as crazy as it sounds, puts Texas out of the college football
I
playoff
agree. And we'll get to
because
that here in a second.
I think with just how much like people are getting upset as we touched on earlier, Texas holds very important tiebreakers over Vanderbilt and over Oklahoma, putting them in that 9-3 slot, and then you lose one of your games is a loss in non-conference to the best team in college football. So I think
Mhm.
Texas is going to do everything they can to win this game, but I don't think it's an elimination game for them.
100% agree with everything you said. Honestly, dude, you're spot on there. I I agree. Georgia never loses two at home. But the one point I will make about Georgia is that they play every single game close this season, minus this Mississippi State one. But you've seen them play games close with teams that they're superiorly talented against. And Texas does have some guys returning from that team that lost in the SEC championship game, which really hurt. Like they lost because of their kicker last year. I mean, there's no bones about it. And then obviously that loss in Austin was demoralizing for this Texas team and kind of was a turning point for them in last year's season. So I think they're going to want to try and go get this win against Georgia. Like you said, they're going to try their hardest. It's one of the toughest things to do, win against a Kirby Smart led team away from home. But I think, like you said, it's going to be a really close game. Definitely will be. I could see this being a shootout. What I'm honestly thinking is I think these are two playoff teams here. Maybe we get a rematch in the playoffs. This is giving me like Alabama, LSU, like early 2010 vibes, where it's two excellent teams that are going to face off against each other for, a chance to really contend for a national title. Now, touching on what you said about Texas being 9-3, I think Texas is probably the only team in the country. We saw South Carolina get close last year at 9-3 to make the playoffs. I think Texas could be a 9-3 playoff team. Say they beat Georgia this week and lose to Texas A&M, I still see if Texas wins one out of these two games against either Georgia or Texas A&M, I think that puts them in the playoff because their resume with a top 10 win against Oklahoma top 10 win against Vanderbilt, and then a top 10 win against either Georgia or Texas A&M, we could definitely see them getting in the playoffs. But it's going to be an awesome game, man. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah. This has just been a brutal schedule for what Texas
Hmm.
had. You have a pretty much a freshman quarterback that's never really played before, and then you play, like, I mean, no telling how many teams that could even be in the college football playoff, nonetheless, a top 25. But I think, like you said, I don't think there's any other team in the country that can make it at 9-3. Maybe Oklahoma if Michigan takes a jump, but like you said, they don't have the tiebreaker over Texas, so that really hurts.
100% agree. We're going to talk a little bit at NFL now. Early on this morning, we saw the Colts beat the Falcons 31-25 over there in Germany. Jonathan Taylor goes nuclear. It sucks. I'm playing him in fantasy this week. Dude had 4 total touchdowns, 244 on the ground, another 50 through the air. I mean, he absolutely torched this Falcons defense for like a total of 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. Tyler Warren goes for 100 yards, kind of solidifying his case for offensive rookie of the year. And I just feel bad for this Falcons team because they continue to play really good football games, getting this game to overtime, and they just keep losing. What do you think of this Colts team? Do you think they're legit, or I mean, is it just all down to Jonathan Taylor?
I don't know. I mean, their offense is supremely talented, and that's kind of what's like. Not a lot of games you win in the NFL allowing 25 points. Um, I don't know. I Colts. I think it just all depends on how Daniel Jones keeps playing. I mean, having so many weapons around him, like you said, Warren Taylor have a good receiving core. I think that really helps. I just think I think. Do you remember that Steelers team that went like 11-0 start?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, I think no, Colts aren't 11-0 or, they're like 8-2, but I think it kinda has that type of vibe. I think they kinda
100%.
fall off through the season. I just don't think their defense is good enough. I think they're a bottom half defense in the NFL. I just can't believe this. Falcons dropped 4 in a row. I think they have a really good roster. I think they have a good team. They just continue to lose games. So I think they'll pick it up near the end of the season, but it's just kinda a sad story for them.
Yeah, I think this kind of with 6 losses, we always talk about it that you really in this day and age in the NFL to make the playoffs, you have to be 10-7. So they pretty much can only lose 1 game throughout the rest of the season. So it's definitely a tall task for them. And I completely agree with you on the Colts. I mean, I think this team is definitely talented, but it really gives me flashbacks to that 11-0 Pittsburgh Steelers team where, they're the surprise of the season, but they just don't have enough juice to really get over that hump. But another really big win for the Ravens, having Lamar Jackson back has obviously helped them out a ton. They're sitting at 4-5 now. Could we see this Ravens team maybe make a little playoff push here?
Yeah, I think they definitely will. I think with Lamar, no question, they're a top 5, top 10 team in football. Just kind of put themselves in a bad spot. Lamar was out for a little bit more than they were thinking originally. I mean, I think you saw like, and just it's like kind of brutal. Like if you remember how the Ravens lost that first game of the year to the Bills, like
Hmm.
they could really use that win right now. Just from, I mean, it's going to come down to the wire, but I think they definitely will make a push. I mean, they're not gonna they're not gonna overlook any team because they can't afford to.
100%. And then the upset of the weekend, I mean, I would say this Dolphins team has struggled a lot this year, but beating the Bills, who just came off that massive win against Kansas City. Josh Allen throws for 306 yards, 2 touchdowns, does have 1 pick. Tua still has 2 more picks, but Devon Achane goes nuclear for 174 yards, 2 touchdowns. What'd you kinda make of this one? What do you make of this box score?
Yeah, I was just happy. I have A-Chain in fantasy, so I was happy to see this result, how he played. I think he had, like, over 40 points. Just kind of I don't know, if you look at the box score, you don't kinda really see how Buffalo loses 30-13. I think
Mhm.
A-Chain broke off a couple big runs. Tua still didn't play great. Allen's still playing good football. Just kind of a weird game, division game. I think it just slipped out of Buffalo's hands late,
And it
but
being away from
just
home too.
Get a win for Miami.
Well, we always talk about it that, there's always it's the NFL. Anybody can beat anybody because these are supremely talented athletes, but there's always one game out of the slate where you're just like, how did that team win? And that was this one this
Yeah.
week. I mean, Buffalo's actually struggled this year in their division. They lost to New England a little bit earlier this season, and then losing to Miami. That's not going to help them with especially the run that the Patriots have been on. The Patriots today get a massive win over the Bucks down there in Tampa Bay. I mean, Drake May is kind of solidifying himself as maybe the MVP candidate based off of how he's played. Baker also has a really good game today too. Two guys that are definitely in that MVP conversation. Travion Henderson finally gets going. I mean, I've been a believer in him this entire season. He goes for 147, 2 touchdowns on only 14 attempts. That's big time for him. But I mean, what do you make this Patriots team this season? You think they're legit?
Oh yeah, I think they're legit. I think Mike Vrabel's just a really good coach. Thought he got canned
I
from
agree.
the way he got canned from Tennessee was crazy. I think players love him. And then Drake May, I mean Josh Allen Jr. He's kind of coming into his own
Hmm.
here. And what's weird too is he really doesn't have that many weapons around him. He's just kind of I mean, everyone they're playing good football right now. Vrabel's always going to have the defense ready. Like I had Travion Henderson in fantasy too. I have him and Ramondre Stack, so it's good to see him break out this week. We'll see if Vrabel actually wants to keep handing him the ball or not. But just big win for New England. Buccaneers kind of been slipping lately, but I think they can pull it back together.
I think that's just a product of the amount of injuries that they have. Not having Bucky Irving, losing Mike Evans for the season, Chris Godwin being out. They're really injured right now in Tampa Bay. And I agree with you about Mike Vrabel, man. I mean, this dude was a phenomenal coach at Tennessee. I mean, at least in my lifetime, brought the best Tennessee teams that we've seen in our
Yeah.
lifetimes. And then they canned him for no reason. He sits out a year and then takes over and honestly a really good situation in New England with a young quarterback. They go out and they get some weapons like Stephon Diggs. Obviously, not in his prime anymore and not really a superior offensive team, but they play good fundamental football and they have a guy at quarterback with Drake May. Drake May has played awesome this year. I'm really liking what I'm seeing out of him. But insane comeback today. The Texans comeback. They were down, I believe it was 29-10 heading into the fourth quarter, and they scored 26 unanswered to win this football game. Davis Mills' legacy game. What do you make of this for the Jags, and what do you make of this for the Texans?
Yeah, Jags. What is their record now?
5-4. The Jags are 5-4 now.
Yeah, so they started 4-1, a lot of hype. Liam Cohen coming in, year one from the being the Buccaneers OC, just kind of they've been slipping, and then big win for the Texans. They started really slow. They do have the number one defense in the NFL, at least
Mhm.
statistically. Just big win, divisional win. You have Davis Mills replace C.J. Stroud after he took that scary hit last week. Just kind of gutted one out. Just kind of uncharacteristic start from the Texans with how good of a defense they had, but just I mean found a way to win. You kind of got to. I mean everyone agrees they have more talent than a 4-5 team, so I think they just kind of keep finding ways to win the past couple weeks, and they're going to try to keep it rolling. But just bad loss for the Jaguars.
Really bad loss considering how much they were up in this game. Seahawks, they're looking phenomenal right now. We don't have to touch too much on that, but
Yeah, I mean
the defense looks great. The offense looks great. This Seahawks team is 7-2 and looking very scary.
Sam Darnold is just such a good story. I mean, how he played Minnesota,
Mhm.
and then they kind of still gave up on him for JJ McCarthy. Then he goes to Seattle. He's doing the same thing. So
Completely agree. Lions win. They look back like they're back to their winning ways this week. Commanders are injury riddled at the quarterback position. They are just really banged up all over the field. It's kind of a lost season for them. But Jameer Gibbs goes off today. Jared Goff has a really good game, and this Lions team gets back on track, moving up to 6-3. And then the Rams dominate the 49ers. I've been really impressed with this Rams team this season, especially with their best wide receiver, Puka Nacua, dealing with a lot of injuries and missing some time here. Matt Stafford has looked phenomenal. Devontae Adams hasn't missed a step, and this Rams defense is legit. But this Rams team is now 7-2. What do you kind of think of them so far?
yeah, I watched a lot of this game. Just Rams dominant wire to wire. 40 stopped the Rams and scored going into halftime. Then they got the ball back. Kind of they cut it to 7 a couple times, but the Rams, what they have going on offense, they just seem can't be stopped. The play action game they have going with Stafford. When you have Nakua and Adams and some of those tight ends like Higbee and Parkinson going.
Hmm.
I even had Ferguson, the rookie, get involved today. It's just
Yep.
hard to stop. 49ers, have lost so much on defense. They lost Fred Warner. They lost Bosa for the year. So I think Mac
They
Jones
just
there for
have
the
terrible
49ers has
injury
been
luck.
playing great. I mean, Mac Jones has been keeping them in every game. I mean, he's played great. That interception he threw today was on a fourth down, just trying to make something happen. Wasn't really can't really put that on him. But the 49ers, I think they're going to be fine. It's just they're going to have to figure something out to supplement those guys they lost on defense.
I agree. I think the 49ers year in, year out have the worst injury luck of any team I think I've ever seen. I don't know what's going on there, if they're just unlucky, but they're just incurring so many unfortunate injuries. But I think Mac Jones is kind of playing himself into a potential starting role next year. It probably won't be with San Francisco, given that they did just extend Brock Purdy, but he's definitely could be vying for a starting job. Maybe if Aaron Rodgers decides to retire there in Pittsburgh, or you see some, obviously New York is going to be moving on from Justin Fields. We could see Mac Jones
Yeah.
potentially getting a shot at those jobs, or even Minnesota if they're not happy with JJ McCarthy's play. So I think Mac Jones
I
has
mean,
shown enough.
he got screwed in there.
Yeah, he did 100%. And
I mean,
I mean, this is,
makes a Pro Bowl his rookie year. Can't
mhm.
ask much more from him.
I mean, it was a product of bad coaching there too. I think it was just it was a tough spot to really expect him to be successful. So I'm very high on Mac Jones. I think this dude is a phenomenal dude. And I love the way he's handled this backup role where he's like, you know what? I'm still not the guy here. The guy is, obviously being Brock Purdy. I'm just trying to get my team wins and putting my team in the best opportunity to succeed. You can't ask any more of him. I really have loved his attitude. And I think Mac Jones 100% deserves another opportunity next year. And he's played some great football this year. I mean, you look, he's over 300 yards, which is kind of like the benchmark for having a really good game in the NFL. But I really like what I'm seeing out of Mac Jones, man. So I hope he gets his opportunity next year. But lastly, we'll touch on the Chargers Steelers game tonight on Sunday Night Football. Was kind of a low scoring game through the first half, and the Chargers start pulling away there and at the end to end up winning 25-10. I haven't been disappointed with what I've seen out of Aaron Rodgers this year. I just think he's turned into, instead of being a game changer, he's turned into more of a game managing quarterback. And Justin Herbert is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. But I'd like to shout out, Kamani Vidal, former Troy football
Mhm.
player, has been doing a great job filling in there for Marion Hanson after they lost him. But what do you kind of make of this game? Chargers are 7-3 after they had a little lull there in the middle of the season. They've won a couple games in a row now. Do you think they're back in that elite status, or are you still not completely sold on them?
And I think they definitely are right there. I think their offense is really good, has a lot of weapons. You obviously need Hampton back, but you do lose Joe Alt for the season, who he
Mm-hmm.
is an O lineman, but
That
just
hurt.
really important to that team. Yeah, that hurt him a lot. I think Steelers have just kind of had an emotional couple of weeks, and they just really couldn't come out with a lot of energy. They think Packers on Sunday Night Football, then they
Mm-hmm.
upset the Colts last week. So just kind of a lot of back and forth for them. Like you said, I mean, Mike Tomlin's going to go over 500, but I don't know if he exceeds much. He might win 10 games with his team, but I'm just like, I'm a Rodgers fan. It's
Yeah.
just enjoying what could be his last season, but I think the Steelers are just going to be a team that they're going to do what they do, and they're going to find ways to win some games. But this one, they just couldn't figure it out. It was very, very ugly early.
Yep, I agree. I think they
But
definitely.
I'll say one more thing.
Yeah.
Chris Boswell. I mean, he keeps the Steelers in so many games. He hits a
Mhm.
59 yarder, 60 yarder every game. It's insane.
He's ridiculous. One of the greatest kickers of all time, and one that a lot of people don't know, with obviously the flashy legs of Brandon Aubrey, Cam Little, but Chris Boswell has been doing it a long time and has been really successful. So, I mean, that he's been great for a lot of years. And I still expect the Steelers team to get in the playoffs, but now this division race got a lot tighter with, the Ravens winning their last two, moving to 4-5. The Pittsburgh Steelers sitting there at 5-4 could definitely get very interesting. But well, that's going to wrap up our college football episode. We appreciate you listening to us and interacting with our posts on social media. Please continue to like, share, subscribe, tell your friends about us, and we really appreciate everything.